We are today right in the center of Germany, and right here we have found some invasive species. We found Neocaridina davidi shrimp and red-rimmed Melanoides snails, and there's also other fish in here. We have guppy fish and convict cichlids, also tilapias and some other fish that were found here, and we are still on the hunt today, so let's dive right in. Alright, we are nearing the Guppy Lake. Woohoo! The first step on our expedition to the Guppy Lake in North Rhine-Westphalia is this coal power plant. You can see it here from behind. It's quite an ancient and brutal looking coal power plant. Now, if you ask yourself, what's the source of the Guppy Lake here in Germany? It's actually this coal power plant over there. You can see that there's a lot of energy production going on, and the cooling water that is used for the coal power plant is actually the source of the Guppy Lake. In Germany, small creeks like this usually experience extreme temperature swings. In the summer, they warm up, but in the winter, the water plunges down to 4 degrees Celsius, or even freezes completely. But this creek is different. Year-round, the nearby Niederaussem coal power plant pumps a constant stream of 30 degrees Celsius warm water directly into this ecosystem. Now, when you hear the words industrial exhaust water, you probably picture something heavily polluted, murky, and maybe even toxic. But that isn't the case here at all. The moment we drop the camera beneath the surface, you can see it's absolutely crystal clear. We started our expedition right here, close to the power plant, because I figured our chances of spotting tropical fish like guppies or cichlids would be the highest near the warm water source. I knew from other YouTubers, like Sasha here, a tropical species, not just guppies, but even black mollies and exotic cichlids have been spotted in German warm water creeks before. I've linked his awesome video in the description below to check out after this. But compared to Sasha's spot, our location had zero aquatic plants. The thick trees and bushes surrounding the banks block out almost all the sunlight, making it nearly impossible for aquatic vegetation to grow. And with no plants, there are no places for fish to hide. Since we didn't spot anything tropical at the source, we pushed a few hundred meters downstream. It was a brutally hot summer day, and the humidity coming off the warm water made the hike incredibly exhausting. Along the shore, the bank vegetation was thick, but still, we saw no signs of tropical fish. Then, our first day came to an abrupt end. What started as a light summer rain instantly exploded into a massive thunderstorm. It got pretty dangerous, forcing us to shelter under a bridge for over an hour. But that storm turned out to be a source of luck. While waiting it out, we crossed paths with 2 researchers from a local university who were surveying the area. We exchanged numbers just in case they stumbled across any unusual aquatic animals. Packed up our stuff and called it a day. We had absolutely no idea that day 2 would bring a discovery that would completely blow this entire investigation wide open. What we found waiting for us just around the bend changed everything. And it all started with a single phone call in the next morning. Now, 2 researchers from KIT told us that there are some cherry shrimp close to this place that we checked out yesterday. And now we're headed there. We are 2 minutes away, and I'm super excited. Let's see if we can see some Neocaridina davidi shrimp today. I think I found a shrimp. Yes, there it was. First time going into the Guppy Creek. Come with me. GoPro is also ready. Now, you can already tell from above that the thunderstorm last night has really turned this crystal clear water into a muddy brown soup. And this makes it incredibly hard. You can see 1 or 2 fish swimming down there, but it's incredibly difficult to see anywhere near as good as we did yesterday, so we'll have to try our best. So the water is really surprisingly warm. I mean, it's summer in Germany, so it is generally very warm, but still the water has the same temperature like the air, so I would say 30 degrees Celsius at least, and that's more or less the same throughout the year in this creek here. So let me fill up my little show aquarium, and then maybe we can find some non-native species here. All right, let's find a spot with some clear water. I think here is fine. Of course, I lost my flip-flop now. I think I need to get closer to the shore. Now I'm barefoot, so need to also watch out not to step on any sticky thing. Now we did see some cherry shrimp in the morning here. That's why I hope that we can get some here also. Spotting any tropical species from my perspective, wading through the thick mud and murky water was way harder than I originally anticipated. To make matters worse, every step I took kicked up loose mud, turning the creek even cloudier and completely destroying my visibility. If you look at Sasha's footage again, the cichlids in his video seemed almost attracted to his camera, and it looked so much easier to spot them from above the surface. Just look at this hemichromis, a Jewel Cichlid, right here in the middle of Germany. It's absolutely wild. But I wasn't about to give up just yet. There's a cherry shrimp. There's actually 2 cherry shrimp right in front of us and a red-rimmed Melania snail. Let me get the snail with the hand. This is definitely not a native snail species. This is a red-rimmed Melania snail, Melanoides tuberculata. Very interesting. Let's add it to the little fishbowl that we have. And now let's get some cherry shrimp right here. Let's see if we can get them. There's tons of cherry shrimp actually. Maybe I can just get them into the net with my fingers. Yes, got 2 of them. Nice. I will add them to our local show tank here. We are here for 10 minutes and already 2 invasive species. 1 red-rimmed Melania snail and 2 Neocaridina davidi shrimp specimens, which is very interesting. So we just took a random spot that looked like we could easily get into the water, and already we have 3 animals that don't belong to Germany. So the Malaysian trumpet snail, as the name indicates, is originally from Malaysia. It's a burying species. It was just pure luck that I could get it because it was on the soil. And then we have the 2 Neocaridina davidi shrimp. And I read on the internet that originally they released red cherry shrimp here, but these ones are totally went back to their natural color. And that's probably due to predation, I would assume. So if there's different colors of Neocaridina davidi shrimp, and I also showed a video about this, if you have different colors in one population, they will always revert to the more natural and more brownish or transparent color pattern, because it's easier for them to hide from predators like this, and selective pressures will just turn them into this natural coloration. It turns out that species like cherry shrimp and Malaysian trumpet snails are uniquely built to survive in these waters. Unlike tropical guppies or cichlids, which can go into shock if the temperature drops during winter, the invertebrates are incredibly cold hardy. Cherry shrimp can actually tolerate water temperatures as low as 4 degrees Celsius and can be kept in cold water tanks, while trumpet snails survive cold periods by burrowing deep into the mud where the temperature stays buffered. I'm not saying that the temperature will reach 4 degrees Celsius here in winter, but it definitely gets lower in winter than it is in summer. In a local German creek, they act as an aggressive cleanup crew, consuming massive amounts of algae and decaying organic matter. Maybe that's part of the reason why the water usually is crystal clear here. But because they reproduce so quickly, they pose a real threat to the local ecosystem. They directly compete for food and space with native German freshwater snails and indigenous scuds, effectively crowding out the native species that actually belong here. First step of our adventure is mastered, and now going to, of course, release them back into the wild. I don't know if that's illegal actually, because it's invasive species and I'm releasing them into the wild, but we just got them out of here like 20 minutes ago. So let's just put the snails and shrimp back, and then we can go to the next stop. You can actually see the patterns of the snails on the bottom of the tank. Finding the cherry shrimp and Malaysian trumpet snails was an awesome first milestone, but I was still determined to find fish. We crossed over to the opposite bank and headed back upstream, moving closer to the warm water source. We were hoping to spot black mollies or guppy fish, any live bearers or cichlids really, just like the ones that were documented here in Germany 3 years ago. But we didn't find any typical tropical fish. Instead, we stumbled onto something much larger and much more terrifying. There's a catfish, giant catfish. Do you see? Wow. Can you see it on the camera? Technically, that's also an invasive species. Native species like chub, barbel, and roach are thriving and multiplying here in these warm waters, but they've become the ultimate target of a massive predator, the Wels catfish. Back around 1970, the local water authority actually introduced these giants into the river system to keep the prey fish population in check. And in the warm water stretch between Grevenbroich and Bedburg, these apex predators are absolutely exploding in numbers. And this one came into the Gilbach. To give you an idea of just how massive they get in these heated waters, a monster catfish measuring 2.37 meters long, nearly 8 feet, was caught right here in this area. And this is where I went into the water. The red-rimmed Melania snails are really everywhere. The problem is they don't run away when you get closer, so it's no problem filming them. But if there were some guppy fish or mollies or cichlids, they'd probably swim away when you get closer. It's a little bit of the issue that I have here. Right before we packed up our gear at the Gill Creek, my wife went to fetch our car, giving me just enough time to check one final spot beneath a nearby bridge. Right next to a heavy, rushing current, I noticed a tiny, shallow spot of calm water, maybe only 2 square meters in size. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a patch of ordinary little pebbles. But as I leaned in and let my eyes adjust, the entire bottom of the creek bed seemed to come alive. I was looking at an army of cherry shrimp. What was truly fascinating was their appearance. These weren't the bright, solid red shrimp you typically see in a home aquarium. Over generations in the wild, these shrimp had developed an incredible dark tiger stripe pattern that blended perfectly into the local riverbed. A kingfisher hunting from the branches above or a local predatory fish swimming by would have a hard time spotting these shrimp. They had evolved the ultimate survival camouflage. So, why were there so many packed into this little tiny area? I think it comes down to the perfect combination of shelter and food. The main current of the creek constantly delivers a steady supply of warm, nutrient-rich water from the power plant. This creates the perfect breeding ground for biofilm and microscopic algae, which is the ultimate buffet for these shrimp. Because this specific pocket is shielded from the heavy, rushing flow, the shrimp can gather and graze in peace without getting washed downstream. It's a paradise for them. Beautiful. Wow. But from up here, it's very hard to see anything in the water.
there's definitely tons of fish down there, but they all look like native species. Also, there was this terrible thunderstorm last night when we were here. So all those trees probably just fell down in the last few days, maybe even last night, and create this artificial waterfall or temporary waterfall rather, not artificial, which creates an interesting habitat. If you look at the dragonflies over there, they are everywhere, and mayflies and damselflies. Very cool. I think we cannot really enter the water here because it's too deep and flowing too fast. So we'll have to check out another spot. Stay tuned. And I think there are some horses. So I will try and walk through the creek to get there and see if there's some fish. It's not easy to get in there. Actually, the water is not as warm here as it was closer to the power plant, which could be due to the shade or due to us being further away from the power plant, which releases warm water, right? Let's see if there's something down here. So the current is actually not that easy to stand in here because the current is still quite strong, but I'm giving my best. Now, while we do not see any tropical fish in here right now, or at least I'm not sure it's tropical fish, we saw some smaller fish, and from above I couldn't tell if it's normal whitefish or young carp, for instance, or actual guppy fish, but I will see that later on. But there is tons of snails, tons of red-rimmed Melania snails again, and you may not see it from above, but you can see it in the underwater camera, and I'll just show it here. So there's practically no 10 centimeters without a Melanoides tuberculata snail, which I find is incredible. They are everywhere. And these snails, remember, they are originally from Malaysia, and they have infested this whole riverbank here, which is crazy. Look at how many snails there are. You cannot really see them from above. You have to get into the water, but it's actually incredible. At the same time, we have tons of German native fish and tons of birds here, but also these snails. How crazy is that? So strange. In the middle of Germany. Now we have traveled a little further downstream, where the Guppy Creek that you can see here on the side is flowing into a larger river named the Erft in Germany. And here I think we can see some non-native aquatic plants actually, and some fish fry that look more colorful than usual fish fry, but it's hard to tell from here. That's why we will have a look with the camera.
You see that the water here is murky, but there are some small fish back there. And I cannot tell now, looking at the footage, but also back then when I filmed it, whether those were guppy fish or not. But maybe you guys can help me and let me know in the comments below what you think. Are those guppy fish fry, or are those just fish fry from a local and native fish species. For me, it was impossible to tell, and when I got closer and got into the water, they swam away instantly. So I couldn't really tell in the end, but still, the journey wasn't over yet. I still had to see whether there's some invasive species here and whether there are also some cherry shrimp here in the much colder After River.
Now, the water here is definitely 100% colder than at the other spot. So, interestingly, there's tons of aquatic life and tiny fish in here, but there's no invasive species apparently. So there's no Neocaridina davidi shrimp and no Malaysian trumpet snails here. You can also see tons of life, but no more fish. The water is a little colder than it was before. I would guess like 5 to 10 degrees colder. Still very, very nice, but definitely a little cooler. And then there's these beautiful aquatic plants here. I'm not sure if they are invasive, but we can check later with a Google picture search. They're definitely beautiful plants, but I'm not sure if they're native to Germany or not. We'll find out later, no problem. And it's interesting because you would definitely see the Malaysian trumpet snails here because it's very easy to spot them on that ground. And the same holds true for the cherry shrimp, which are not here anymore. So it must be too cold for them here. Interesting. But beautiful nevertheless. Look at all the fish here.
And this marks the end of my journey to the Guppy Lake in Germany. Maybe I shouldn't call it Guppy Lake, maybe I should call it Cherry Shrimp Creek instead. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to say big thanks to Sascha Heuer for letting me use some of his video footage. Check out his channel, it's super cool. Big thanks also to the Guppy gang and the Tetra gang who are supporting me and my work here with a monthly support. They get early access to my videos, and if you want to join that membership as well, feel free to do so by scanning this QR code or clicking the link in the description. And if you found this video interesting, I'm sure you would love my video about invasive species in our German lakes or the video on the left. Thanks for watching.
Oh God. Oh, hot. Wow.